Hey, welcome to another episode of the Leadership Lifter. I'm Jason Hanish, your host, and today we're going to be talking about how your attitude determines your altitude. Your attitude is so important. It's often very overlooked. For instance, you've probably never taken any courses or classes in attitude. You've never, when you went to theology school, leadership school, business school, you've probably never studied a course on attitude. Yet, attitude is the differentiator oftentimes between success and failure, whether a leader has it or doesn't have it. Because people, they hear your words, but they feel your attitude. They're going to receive your attitude a lot faster and a lot deeper than they're actually receiving the words that you're saying. A leader's attitude, it's caught more than quickly can be that their actions are caught. Your attitude is either an asset or a liability. Not even as we begin this conversation today. Just ask yourself that question in reflection. Is your attitude an asset or is it a liability? The secret to success is attitude, not aptitude. Aptitude is what you know. Attitude is how you act with people. It's how we respond to challenges. It's your approach to life. People always will project on the outside what they're feeling on the inside. And attitude is really about how a person is. It's the overflow into his actions. Probably the first step in real maturity is when we take responsibility for our attitudes. That's when we really grow up. When we stop blaming other people for why we're having a bad day or a good day. Why your attitude is stinky or is positive according to what day or season you're in. That first step to real maturity is when you take ownership of your own attitude. Here's how we say it at Discovery Church. It's one of our values. You can choose joy. Joy is a choice. It's not circumstantial. You have a choice, and we actually have this value on our team that it's an expectation we carry. That when we step into serving God and blessing others, we're not going to let this life, circumstances, politics, family affect the attitude of our hearts. We can choose that. We can choose joy, even though circumstances are unfavorable. Philippians 4:4 says, rejoice in the Lord always. I'll say it again, he says for emphasis, rejoice. Now, he doesn't say rejoice when it's going well, favorable, when circumstances are good, when you're out of the storm, when you're out of the test, and when you're out of the trial. Now you can begin to rejoice. No, he says rejoice in the Lord always, which means this: you can learn joy. Some of you can learn how to have a positive attitude. If you're listening to this and you may have a more of a pessimistic attitude, a down attitude, the good news is you can learn how to be more positive. You can learn joy. You actually learned how to be negative. You learned how to be down, depressed, or pessimistic. You actually picked that up through circumstances, through the spirits around you, through the people around you. You pick that up, and you can actually choose to let go of some things and adopt some new attitudes. So today, I want to drill into this and just speak some truths, some axioms about our attitude today. A whole bunch of them today, okay? Here's the first one. Our attitude determines our approach to life. Your approach, whether you think God can or he won't, or maybe you can or you can't. Will we ever? Or yes, we can. That actually approach that you approach your projects and challenges and your work life or your relationships, I don't think it's going to work out, or I believe it is going to work out. That approach you have generally in life is attitudinal. It actually, you can change that by changing your attitude and choosing joy. Our attitude determines our relationships with people. Your attitude determines whether you're going to have a positive or negative approach or relationship with others. That's why Teddy Roosevelt said, the most important single ingredient to the formula of success is knowing how to get along with people. Okay, that's the most important thing is, can you get along with people? J.D. Rockefeller, he said it like this: I will pay more for the ability to deal with people than any other ability under the sun. Okay, if you have a positive attitude, if you can choose joy, you are going to relate to people better and therefore get a better result as a leader. Here's the third one here: attitude truth, attitude axiom. Often our attitude is the only difference between success and failure. I want you to think about that. Like the difference if you're going to make it or not, if you're going to succeed or not as a leader in that new ministry position, as a pastor, whatever your new role is. Often, what's going to determine if you will make it or not, succeed or not, it's the slight edge, I call it. Attitude is the slight edge that you can get. It will determine success and failure. Our attitude at the beginning of a task will affect the outcome more than anything else. What is your attitude when you are starting a project, when you see the problem or the challenge, when you're starting the task? What is your initial attitude? Because it's that attitude that will determine the success or failure more than anything else as you're going along the journey of that project. And coaches understand this principle of how you begin, what the attitude of how you begin, having the right attitude. Like in football, when I used to play football, I don't know if you ever played sports, but we would get these locker room talks. In the locker room, our coach would rally us together. He'd get us all together. Sometimes we'd take a knee and he'd sit in the middle and we're rallied around him. And he's just telling us what we can do and what we're made of and what we're going to do. And he's just speaking life and faith and determination over us. And the reason why, at the end of that conversation, at the end of that huddle, you stand up and you shout, you're screaming, you're running out of that locker room, you bust through that banner, you take the field believing that you are going to win. That is strategic. Coaches know that locker room talk, they plan it, they prepare for it. They know they got to get their team thinking in the right thoughts and in the right attitude. So how you begin a project, how you begin a task, really determines the success of it. Our attitude can turn problems into blessing. Oh, this is a huge one. The problems that we're so down about, depressed about, negative about, that we have a leaning towards that direction, just by the switch of an attitude, it actually can turn what you thought and are thinking and treating like a problem, can treat it like a blessing. This is now an opportunity for growth. It's an opportunity for change. It's an opportunity to get better. It's an opportunity to get the right people on our team. You can see it now. And this is just an attitude shift that can make something a problem or a blessing. Philippians 1:12 says it like this. Paul says, "Now I want you to know, brothers and sisters, that what has happened to me has actually served to advance the gospel." This is the Apostle Paul from prison saying, I want you guys to be encouraged. I want you guys, the church, to have the right attitude. That what's happened to me, that I am suffering in chains, I have a different attitude than some of you are having, and I want you to have the right attitude. What's happening to me has actually served to advance the gospel. And he goes on to say that people are strengthened, they're emboldened in their faith because of his chains, and God has positioned him to preach the gospel in certain spheres of political influence because of his imprisonment. He changed his attitude, and what was a problem, he saw it as a blessing. That was his attitude that made that shift. See, attitudes have the power to lift up or tear down a team. Okay, just by your attitude, if you're a leader of any team, whether it's a worship team or an ushers or kids ministries, youth, whatever it is, your attitude, how you're stepping into, and what attitude that you're carrying when you walk onto whether it's the huddle, the team, or your ministry, it has the ability as a leader to either build it up or tear it down. See, it's your abilities plus your attitudes equal tremendous results. So if you got the right abilities and the right attitude, you can get tremendous results. But check this out. Great talent plus rotten attitudes is a bad team. We've seen a lot of that in sports where you got a great talented sportsmen, basketball players, football players, soccer players. They have great talent, but they have rotten attitudes. They don't get along, their outlook on life. That's a bad team. You've probably seen a lot of that. But great talent plus a bad attitude. So maybe not rotten, but bad. That's an average team. They're great talent, but they still haven't got the right attitude to get along, make it work together. That's going to be an average team no matter how talented they are. But great talent plus average attitudes where they just are averagely getting along with each other, have average attitudes, that's going to be a good team. That's a good team. But great talent plus good attitudes is a great team. Now, if you can create that on your team, if you can learn how to not just train for skill, train for aptitude, but if you can start shaping and modeling the right attitude, you're going to have a tremendous team because attitudes have the power to lift up and tear down a team. The second thing here is that attitudes compound when it's exposed to others. We've all seen this. If you get the right, or if you get an attitude with other attitudes of the same attitude, it's going to compound and multiply. Uh, During the first half of the 20th century, many sports experts believed that no runner could run a mile in less than 4 miles. And for a long time, they were right. But then on May 6, 1954, a British runner and university student by the name of Roger Bannister ran a mile in 3 minutes and 59.4 seconds during a meet in Oxford. Less than 2 months later, check this out, another runner, Australian John Landy, he also broke that 4-minute barrier. Then suddenly, dozens and then hundreds of others broke it shortly after. What happened? Why did that immediately kind of happen that way? Because the best runners' attitudes changed. They began to adopt a mindset of the belief of their peers that what they thought was impossible, what was believed as impossible, but in humanity that we could not break 4 minutes, began to change. People's attitudes toward it began to change, and they started adopting the attitude of their peers, and everybody began to break it. You know why? Because an attitude compounds when it's exposed to others. Now, on a positive side, that's great. But on a negative side, that can tear a team apart. If you get the wrong attitudes, if you don't address the wrong attitudes, if you as a leader are not addressing the wrong, if people are not coming in choosing joy and they're choosing negativity, they're choosing gossip, they're choosing criticism, they're choosing pessimism, and you're not addressing that, it will compound and become toxic to your team. Number 3, bad attitudes compound faster than good ones. There's only one thing more contagious than a good attitude, and that's a bad attitude. For some reason, many people think it's like chic to be negative. I don't know why. They just feel like they're smart if they can criticize something. I suspect that they think it makes them appear smart or important, but the truth is that a negative attitude hurts rather than helps the person who has it. And it also hurts the people around them. So bad attitudes, they compound faster than good ones. Attitudes are subjective though. So identifying the wrong ones can be pretty difficult. I don't know if you've ever interacted with someone for the first time and suspected that their attitude was poor, yet you were unable to put your finger on exactly what was wrong or where it was off. The reason people doubt their observations about others' attitudes is because attitudes are subjective. Someone with a bad attitude may not do anything illegal or unethical, but his attitude may be ruining the team just the same. So what are some of the attitudes that are hard to spot that you need to be able to spot and address on a team? The inability to admit wrongdoing. I don't know if you ever spent time with someone who would never admit they're wrong. It's painful to be around that person and to be on a team with that person. It's hard to detect, but if you can be discerning about this, the inability to admit wrongdoing, you need to snuff that out. That's the wrong attitude. How about this one? Failing to forgive. That sometimes is an attitude that we overlook. Holding a grudge is never positive. It's never appropriate. But when unforgiveness occurs between teammates, especially, it is certain to hurt the team. How about petty jealousy? An attitude that really works against people is the desire for equality that feeds petty jealousy. For some reason, the people with this attitude believe that every person deserves equal treatment, regardless of talent, performance, or impact. Yet nothing could be further from the truth. Each of us is created uniquely and performs differently. And as a result, we are treated as such. So petty jealousy can get in the way of people's attitude. Selfishness is another attitude. It can be hard to detect, but very toxic. A critical spirit is something that needs to be identified because it will compound in your team. Unity or lack of unity is hard to identify, but you need to be discerning. Here's number 5. This last one I'll give you is rotten attitudes left alone. It'll ruin everything. Bad attitudes, they have to be addressed. You can be sure that they will always cause dissension, resentment, combativeness, division on your team if you don't address it. And then they'll never go away on their own. If they're left unaddressed, you think it'll go away. Oh, it'll work itself out. No, that's why you're the leader, to create the right culture and the right atmosphere and attitude on your team. They're going to simply fester and ruin the team along with its chance of reaching its potential. So here at Discovery, we have a value to choose joy. But unless we have leaders who are actually helping model that and then correcting the wrong attitudes, then that value will be nothing more than just a statement on a wall if it's not practiced down our halls. So leaders, choose joy, model it, and have your team model it as well.